Are the Gospels legend? This is an interesting question. Depending on how it's phrased, is often an objection or an accusation. Often the question behind the question, as it were, is this: Nathan, look, the people who wrote the Gospels or the New Testament documents, were they not actually making up stories in order to start a movement? Just think about that for a moment. Well, let me give you a few things to think about. One is this. It's a quote by pastor and author Tim Keller, who said, "The content is far too counterproductive for the Gospels to be legend." Let me explain. For scholars to verify the trustworthiness of books of antiquity, or in this case, the Gospels, they apply a criteria. And within that criteria is something called the criterion of embarrassment, the embarrassment criterion. The embarrassment criterion effectively focuses on sayings or events involving Jesus Christ that would have caused embarrassment for the early church. Let me explain. Just give you two examples here. One involves Peter. Peter was one of Jesus Christ's closest friends. He was in the inner circle. But we know from the Gospels that he denied his Lord, Jesus Christ, moments before Christ was killed on a cross. Scholars look at this and say, hey, if the church, the early church, were trying to start a movement, well, this does not look good for them. This would cause embarrassment. Therefore, they would have removed it, but it is not removed or suppressed. It's left in. Therefore, it must be true. One more example. This one involving Judas Iscariot. Again, one of Christ's closest friends. In the Gospel, we see that Judas Iscariot he played a key role, one, in betraying his Lord. He betrayed his Lord, but more than that, this set up a series of events which ultimately led to Christ's death. Scholars again look at this and say, hey, look, Christ is the center. He is at the center of the early church's movement. If they were making up stories, they would have removed this one that shows one of Christ's closest friends betraying him. But it isn't. It is not suppressed. It is left in. Scholars conclude this must be true. Now, there are actually many other stories we can list here, but those are just two examples. So what do we say to the accusation of the Gospels being legend? Well, I would say this. There might be many accusations or objections that people will raise against the Gospels. But this idea that they are legend simply just doesn't add up, especially when we look at the embarrassment criterion.